afternoon. Good afternoon. My colleague, Professor Srivastava, Director Sir, and dear friends. I think Rajendra reminded that it is a post-lunch session. It's a very difficult session. We normally say there are two kinds of lunches. There is a working lunch and there is a lunch that works. With the Imrati to top it, I think it tends to be a lunch that works. So I have a double task. One, to keep myself awake, and then to keep you awake. Okay. So let me do that. I understand Hindi. I cannot speak very well, though I can also manage to speak. So I will largely speak in English, but you feel comfortable to either ask for clarity, or if you want to raise a question in Hindi, it's perfectly okay. I cannot say I'm comfortable, but I understand and I can speak. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. The topic given was accelerating implementation of the session of National Education Policy 2020. There are two things which are very, very important in NEP. One which Professor Jain was talking of in the earlier session, which is Institutional Development Plan. And the second one is, which is more academic, and I assume most of us come from undergraduate educational institution, at least from our perspective, holistic and multidisciplinary education. This is the other most important part of the whole policy. There are many things, but these are one which will immediately affect us in our everyday functioning. So since he has already spoken on IDP, I will focus more on multidisciplinary and holistic education. And Professor Srivastava will complement this because he is going to talk about, from his experience, the idea of implementing the NEP at his university. So in that sense, all three will connect and hopefully will provide a little larger picture. Okay, even before this. From my organization, when the policy was announced after I think 8 or 10 months, we have been hugely involved in disseminating and popularizing NEP. We have done at least about 300 to 400 other conferences or webinars, largely across South India, largely Karnataka, because we are located there, but we have done. And then we said, let's also find out as to what is the awareness of people about the policy. And the policy awareness about policy document itself. So we did a survey. It was an online survey. Mostly, I think 99.9% focused on teachers in colleges and universities. One of the questions asked was, have you read the policy document, which is about 64 or 65 pages? And to our utter dismay, those who said, I go by their statement, those who say that they have read the document did not cross 12% of the respondents, which was very, very disappointing. And even when we have gone to different workshops elsewhere also, from the kind of questions we realize that the awareness is low. But I presume we are in the midst of academic leaders, so I don't presume that. I presume everybody is very familiar with the policy. So we will touch few introductory aspects, but largely more on deeper elements. I can also speak without the mic. No issue.
I think that.
Oh, great.
I think this is
no problem. As a teacher, we are all used to shouting, so I don't mind. I can reach 100 students at any given time. Okay. NEP is not about tweaking or making small changes or improvements in the system. That's not the purpose of NEP. Yeah? NEP is definitely looking at a huge shift a paradigm shift in education. In fact, Dr. Kasturirangan, who was the chairman of the panel which wrote the report on which the policy is based on, keeps saying it is not about anything else, it is about a culture change. We are trying to initiate a big culture change in education, and it is very necessary because as we all know from variety of things happening around us, India is at a cusp of a big place in the world polity and world economics and world scene. And we have this great demographic dividend. But all this we can encash it, provided we have a greater change in education. So in that sense, it is a paradigm shift, a cultural change. And there are many things which we have to change simultaneously. This is always the most difficult thing, because changing anything to do with human beings or human systems is like repairing an aeroplane while it is flying. It is as risky, but at the same time, it is as essential. Because if it is something has gone wrong, if you can't repair it, it is anyway going to crash. But if something goes wrong, also it can crash. So it is risky and rewarding. It's both. So it is something important. And transition demands a stakeholder involvement. As Professor Jain was already saying, this is one of the most widely consulted policy document, perhaps in the world, definitely in India. It has been with all kinds of groups. I mean, if you, I know I have worked closely with the 2-3 members who are members of the Kasturirangan committee, and the kind of people whom they have interacted with. Industry, obviously, physically disabled members groups, transgenders. I mean, I'm just trying to give you a feel of what a wide consultation went on while drafting the policy. So it's very widely consulted policy. Therefore, implementation also requires a wide stakeholder consultation. So, I'm picking on the word accelerating the implementation. I think acceleration should not mean in terms of time. It's not whether we can implement in 2 months, 6 months, 8 months. And implementation finally depends on whether people involved are prepared for it or not. If we do it, in fact, many states have already said we have implemented. And when I come from a state which claimed, Karnataka claimed, that we are the first state to implement, there are still a lot of uncertainties because we are in a hurry. So more than hurry, I think it's how well can we implement is important. That's very, very important. Okay. And given the complexity of our system, a top-down approach with others simply complying has been our standard culture in higher education. For everything, looking at government or looking at UGC has been the norm, which perhaps in some sense something easy comes easily because we are a very large system and a very complex system. So one of the convenient things that happen is somebody decides and everybody simply complies. Yeah, we need to move away from it, and NEP is very clear that the administrative philosophy or the management philosophy of NEP is light but tight, which means there will be fewer regulation, but they will be insisted upon. And lastly, it will be based on more public disclosure. In fact, the expectation going forward is every institution will put lot of its information, including to some extent finances, on its website. Because the only way of checking, somebody sitting and controlling a large system like this can never be very efficient. So we have to create a self-correcting mechanism, which is more you disclose, as an institution, I tend to behave appropriately. Which is what, for example, many of us must be into investment, which is what SEBI did when SEBI came into a financial market. That's exactly what it did. It says companies have to put all these, including salaries beyond a point given to any employee, must be available in the annual report. So the idea is to create a transparent system so that the system becomes efficient and fair, which is what we are looking at. If we don't change this culture, we will slip back into the old system, somebody sitting there controls. I think we need to move from it. there are three kinds of changes: structural, regulatory, and at the academic level, holistic and multidisciplinary education. Structural change: higher education system will be transformed into a large multidisciplinary holistic education system, colleges and universities. By 2040, all higher education institutions must become multidisciplinary institutions, and with a large strength. Don't take the 3,000 as something cast in stone, because the 3,000 is kept in mind. It has kept two things in mind. One is our gross enrollment ratio today is anywhere between 27 and 28, and by 2040 we have to move to 50%, which is practically doubling. If we have to double, two things will have to happen, or will happen. One, the number of institutions will increase, and the enrollment in each institution has to increase. This is one reason. And secondly, institutions have to be financially viable. Therefore, we need the numbers. I mean, today, an average size of Indian college is anywhere between less than 1,000. An average size is 1,000. Though there are colleges with 10,000, 20,000, but an average size is 1,000, which makes them financially very difficult to sustain, or nor can they make investment into it and grow into a bigger thing. Therefore, they need to grow. That's the idea. And single stream colleges will be phased out. This is the other thing. This I am sure will raise antennas in some people's mind. I am a single stream college. What should happen to me? There are two options which already UGC has come out with certain guidelines. One, of course, you can open up and become a multidisciplinary institution. The other is, it is possible that we make a cluster of a geographically contiguous institutions of different streams. Because the idea is the students must get a multidisciplinary experience while getting educated. Who gives is immaterial for the student. Whether he gets it in college X or college Y, or in association with college and X and Y he gets, is beside the point. So if we can't manage it, we'll have to find ways of doing it. Yeah. And the system of affiliated colleges will go away by 2035, which I think is one of the most significant suggestions. And having worked in an affiliated college for many, many years, I am very happy with these suggestions personally. When the first three universities were established in India by the British government, as a part of the colonial project, the model that was brought was the University of London model, which was actually affiliating the university. We changed over a period of time, but we have hung on to it for 150 years. I think it simply needs to go. This again is a classification made. Two things about this I'm sure you are aware of, so I'll not spend time on this. There are two things we need to remember. One, though they have put they have put one after the other, they are not hierarchical in nature. Doesn't mean research-oriented university is higher than teaching-oriented university, or degree awarding colleges are less than university. It's only function-based classification, number one. Number two, they are not permanent categories. A degree awarding autonomous college can move to become a university over a period of time if it chooses to. Right? The idea is, very clearly, institution must know what is its focus. That's all that it is saying. Yeah. And the last one is significant for many of us, because colleges, once they're out of affiliating system, will become degree awarding autonomous colleges. Even now there is an autonomous college category existing, but it is a very limited autonomy. On paper it says academically, institutions are autonomous, but in reality, I'm sure you know better than me, many places the parent university still controls through front door, through back door, the autonomous colleges. So we need to move away from that, and that's a big change that's going to happen. Sorry? Yes, sir. It only means, for example, today 95% colleges are affiliated, or even more perhaps. Okay, I don't have the exact figure. Now, when we have to say, there are two ways of doing it. One is by a stroke of pen tomorrow morning we can say every affiliated college is an autonomous college. But this is not a healthy way of doing it. We have to enable people to become autonomous. Therefore, there will be a graded process in next 15 years, which means UGC is supposed, or UGC or its successor is supposed to come up with a mechanism. In fact, NAC is already working on that. How do you make an institution autonomous over a period of time? For example, I go for assessment, accreditation this time. There will be specific focus on autonomy. What work have I done towards that? Keeping that, I may be placed in certain category. And if I show consistent performance, I mean, this is one possibility. There could be many ways. In the next stage, I will be declared as you are now eligible for autonomy. You apply and get it. So there has to be an enabling process. You can't just release people and say now from today you are, it's like saying a moment my son is 18 years and I say, okay, here is the car key, take, now you are independent. I can't do that. I need to enable, right? So in that sense. And the regulatory system will also be different because anybody who runs, including college principals, will know this. The biggest challenge is we have multiplicity of multiple regulatory agencies. And all of them ask for same information in different format. Lot of institutional time and energy and leadership's peace of mind is lost in complying with regulators. So the idea therefore is there will be one single regulator now for higher education. It will be called Higher Education Commission of India. In fact, the draft is ready. The idea is hopefully it will come to Parliament in the monsoon session and it will get approved. It should have come earlier. I think I always say NEP is the right thing which came in slightly at the wrong time because it coincided with pandemic. So a lot of energy of the state went into managing the crisis. So many things are delayed, but I'm told it's coming. And it will have 4 verticals under it. And each vertical will focus on one thing. NHERC will focus on regulation of the system. National Accreditation Council will talk about accreditation. It will not do accreditation of colleges or university. What it does is, it will set up a framework. And there could be more than one NAC which will be doing the assessment and accreditation. Because even today, 25 years since NAC came into existence, if you look at the number of colleges and universities it has been able to do, is not very encouraging. And if you take actual number of institutions, because some are already in 3rd cycle, 4th cycle, so if you take that away and say how many actual institutions, it's really small.
4,000.
Huh?
4,000.
4,000 perhaps includes the 2nd and 3rd cycle. So if you remove that and say how many specific institutions, irrespective of the cycle, it might come down to 2,000 or 3,000 maybe, 3,000.
Out of 43,000.
Yeah, so that's a number. So therefore we need more. I mean, a higher education system like US, for example, has different accreditors. You can choose to go to your accreditor. There are not one, there are 2 or 3, I think. There are 3 there. So like that we need to have. And from my point of view, this is my personal opinion, this is not what policy says. It also actually puts a check on the quality of the accreditor also. See, today there is a monopoly of accreditation, right, by NAC. And any monopoly tends to bring complex system becomes very lethargic because they assume they have a monopoly. Yeah. So therefore, if there are more than one, who will come to me for accreditation also decides my quality, efficiency. If IITs are going to one accreditor, then obviously there is something better there, or IIM. So it depends, whichever institution. So in that sense, it brings in quality there. All financing will go to Higher Education Grants Commission, and there will be a General Education Commission which will take care of academic issues, which is where NHEQF has already come, has released by UGC now, That is UGC is doing in the absence of new structure being there. Otherwise, it should go to GC. So these four will be there. Hopefully, by the year end, we should have something like this in place.
ECGs are only for this grant, or they will offer the loan type of system under HPA?
It says anything to do with financing. So if I mean, there is already a loan thing existing, higher education. So I don't know whether something like that will also come under them as.
This word is there.
Yeah, that word is there. But see, I'm not, don't hold the policy if my statement doesn't go well with you. It is a reality that grant is not going to at least drastically increase anyway. Our biggest hope is it should at least remain where it is. Yeah. Because that's where we are. Yeah. So therefore, the grant will take care of the grant element, but I believe financing will also include all other options. It's a learner-centered system that we are looking for, and everything will be governed by outcomes. Already NAC is asking for outcome-based education approach. I think engineering is one which has been using it for a longer time in India, because NBA has been insisting it for much longer. So we need to look at education in terms of what outcomes it produces, not what inputs we have put in. And there's no point saying I have 1,000 computers or 3,000 computers on the campus. With that, what is happening to my students is more critical. So in that sense, outcome becomes important, because finally, all learning needs to be demonstratable. So in that sense, institutions' outcome is a demonstratable outcome in terms of our graduates, and which includes what learner can do and what kind of learning environment we provide. And this we learned without our wanting to learn, thanks to pandemic. Learning is not limited by space and time of the classroom anymore. Technology has made this, I mean, perhaps as a teacher, I thought technology entering into classroom or we directly engaging with technology will take maybe another 10 years. This was my own assessment till the pandemic hit. So willy-nilly, unprepared, without realizing what it means, we were all forced to jump into it. But we have all realized that it is a possibility, and so therefore policy very clearly hints that learning is not limited by space and time of the classroom. There is a huge change in the role of faculty, what is visualized in the policy. If I am from an affiliated college, there are, let's say, 5 things that happen: curriculum, assessment, teaching, learning, student support services, and larger institutional development. If you look at role of university or government, you can even say /government, and role of colleges. Curriculum was entirely determined by the university. We faculty only transacted it. Assessment, university decides. It's some faculty implemented to some extent. Sometimes even that freedom we didn't have. Teaching, learning, university has very little role, entirely done by the college level, by the faculty. Student support, universities have not really focused on it. It has been largely faculty, individual faculty responsibility. Institutional development, it's the leadership which drives it, and faculty are only part of implementing. This is what the scenario that exists. But as a change, now once the affiliation system ends, curriculum development shifts to colleges. This is a major change in our everyday functioning. Yeah. Assessment, evaluation move from university to colleges. Teaching, learning assumes a new dimension and importance, because the multidisciplinary education just doesn't mean giving different subjects. It is also a major change in the way we teach. Institutional development plan, we need to move beyond compliance, and it should be driven by all stakeholders, which is what Professor Jain also was mentioning in the earlier session. Student support and learning environment. in fact, one of the very good documents, if you have patience to read, is Kasturirangan Committee report. Actually, the policy document is a very short document, so many things it assumes. It doesn't argue for, it just states. But if you go to Kasturirangan Committee reports, around 450 or 460 pages, very well argued document. For everything, there is an argument why they are doing and what they intend to achieve through that. So it very clearly says student development and creating a learning environment for students to learn is very critical, and therefore mentoring and student advising, career guidance and guidance in terms of what courses to study is very critical. In fact, report very clearly says every college must have, every institution must have a career guidance center, because the students are free to choose things. They should know what to choose and how to choose. Somebody should be there to do their job. This we have done. Undergraduate education is very, very critical. This is something that we overlook many ways. All over the world, percentage is a little higher in us, but it's not very, very different elsewhere. In India, 85% for 85% of the students, undergraduate degree or the first degree that they take is their terminal degree. They don't choose any education beyond the first degree. This is true of 85% of our students. Right? Only 10 also is perhaps higher. 10% move to post-graduation. So which means what? Which means undergraduate system caters the largest segment of students. Which means what happens when they stop getting educated after the first degree? They obviously look for jobs or they become entrepreneurs. Which means undergraduate system of education produces the largest number of employees and entrepreneurs. And obviously citizens, because all of them will end up voting in. And all UG education now will move to autonomy. Autonomy not only academic, but also in administrative matters. So when we look at changes as a part of the policy, there is a macro change and a micro change. Macro is what will come from the state, union government, or UGC or any other successors of UGC. Macro change is what happens either at the institutional level or at the individual level. So, what macro changes are usually regulatory and structural reforms. They have to come from elsewhere, from above us in the system. And some of them have not come. They should have come much earlier. As a teacher, as somebody concerned about higher education, HECI should have been the first thing that should have happened, perhaps. But that has not happened. That's one part. It will happen over a period of time. But for me and for all of us, the most important thing is what happens at the micro level, which is institutional and individual. And for example, institutional level and both individual level, one of the first things that has to happen is the mindset change. I think somewhere Bill Gates puts it very well. He imagines himself like a Rip Van Winkle who goes to sleep for many, many years. He goes elsewhere and suddenly lands in Washington DC after many, many years, 40, 50, 60 years. And he can't recognize Washington, because capital is a crumbled thing. White House has become dilapidated old house. Yeah. And he says, what is this place I can't recognize? And suddenly he sees one building. And he says, this I know. And he enters, it's the same as it was. That was his school. That is his school. With this Bill Gates way of putting it. The point is, education, and Indian context, more so higher education. I mean, all over the world, this is not just true of India, I mean, this is not about us as well only. Education is supposed to be a harbinger of change, but it changes very little compared to that. There is a need to change. Okay? So, biggest change that is required is a mindset. So, what does I have used liberal and multidisciplinary as synonyms. If you look at the draft, it uses the word liberal education. In the policy document, we have used the word multidisciplinary and holistic. That is because when you operationalize liberal education, it becomes multidisciplinary education. They have used a much more, operational term because it's a policy. But the idea is liberal education. And the purpose of liberal arts education is to enable students to explore remarkable relationship that exists among sciences, humanities, mathematics, art, medicine, physics, etc. A comprehensive liberal arts education develops all capacities of human being, intellectual, aesthetic, social, physical, emotional, moral, in an integrated manner. Purpose of liberal arts is not simply to prepare for one's first job, but also for second, third job and beyond. I'm sure we are already seeing this. I can quote my own experience. When I completed my SSC many years ago, my father pushed me to learn typewriting. I hated it, but he pushed me and I had to go through. And when I resisted, he said, if nothing else, you will earn your livelihood as a typist. Out of concern, he did that. I appreciate it now. But then I hated it at that time. But if you take that seriously, that line of thinking, and if I believed I can survive as a typist, today typing machines are out and typists don't exist. What I'm saying is jobs that so-called existed might just disappear, have disappeared in one generation. Or when I was in college, if somebody said you can earn your livelihood by arranging marriages or functions, perhaps I would have laughed at it. Today you ask any young people in any city who is getting educated, he will say event management is a good option of career. Something that didn't exist has come. Something we thought was my father thought it will always be there. Till I die, I can work as a typist, has ceased to exist. So people are not going to get to one job. I think that era is over. So the idea is to prepare not for the first job, but any jobs that one may have to, because we live in times of change and disruption. So therefore, holistic and multidisciplinary education. This is, let me not take much time. There is a well-known waterfall in my state called Job Waterfalls. Many may know about it. Beautiful place to see. Somewhere in the beginning of 20th century, two people visited that place. I'll tell you who they are, you will recognize them. One of them said, what a beauty. He's written very great flowery language, he has written about it, saying it's a great sight to see. Few years later, another gentleman, also well known, you will recognize him, went to see that place, and first time, when he saw that, his first expression is, what a waste. Same waterfall, equally beautiful to both in some sense. One said, what a joy, place to see. Other said, what a waste. The first one was Rajendra. He had come to visit his brother nearby who was an ICS officer. So he visited this place. The second one was Vishweshwaraya, an engineer. Okay, a well-known engineer statesman. So the point I'm trying to make, which is what the whole thing is saying, the entire slide is saying, we normally think that a subject or a discipline is a certain content, certain theory, certain idea. It's not just that. It is of course certain idea, but it is also a way of looking at the world. A poet looks at the world differently. An engineer looks at the world differently. So my thinking gets colored or gets influenced, gets determined by what I have studied. My discipline colors my perception. And in that sense, disciplines are very fundamental. Now, the question is, when a student studies only one subject, he tends to learn to at reality in one way, which is good. It helps to some extent. But please remember, we live in a world which is disruptive today. Things are changing very fast, unimaginable ways. Yeah. The disciplinary approach was okay for an industrial age, but we are not in industrial age. We are in a knowledge age today. Industry is already gone beyond 4.0. They say industry 5.0. So we are in a different era, and technology has disrupted everything, unimaginable. And therefore, artificial intelligence has changed the way we work and we interact. By all predictions, at least 30% of the jobs that exist today may not exist in next 20 years. 30-40% of another 20% of the jobs, 20-30% of the task of another 30% of the jobs will also be mechanized. So jobs are going to be automated and mechanized. Therefore, job profile, the world of work will change drastically. Which means, when I prepare my child or my student for a profession, for work, what am I preparing for? I think it was Obama's Secretary for Education, I forget his name. He said something very significant. He said, we are preparing our children for careers that don't exist as yet. We are preparing our children for a career that don't exist as yet. So which means, how do we prepare them for? If I don't know what I am preparing them for, how can I prepare them? That's the question. That is where multidisciplinary approach comes. Because multidisciplinary or liberal approach essentially trains you for complexity, diversity, change. Because I am exposed to different disciplines, my orientation also, I can move from one orientation to another orientation fast. I become what I call as cognitively agile. Not just physically agile, I become cognitively agile because the world is changing. I don't know what change will come. I need to prepare my child for that. So, therefore, graduates, once they are through multidisciplinary education, will be able to understand the language of different disciplinary experts and helps them to communicate. Teaching is perhaps the last job which can be done individually. But no other job in the world today can be done individually, including medicine. Everything today is more a joint group, a team effort. And usually, since problems are going to be more complex, the group that will handle the problem will be experts drawn from different fields. And if I'm working in that kind of a team, I need to understand each other's language. Therefore, multidisciplinary education is very important. So what we are looking for is what is called a T-shaped curriculum. This was originally coined by this well-known consultancy firm called McKinsey, but now people are increasingly talking of this in higher education. A good graduate should be T-type graduate, which means he should have the breadth of knowledge and also depth. So we need to give depth in one discipline or two disciplines and give breadth in many other disciplines, which is why multidisciplinary education. And what do employers say? I'll take just 5 more minutes. There is something called World Economic Forum, which is a gathering of all the employers of the world. And World Economic Forum has coined this term called 21st century skills. It doesn't matter what discipline I study, what courses I do, I need to ensure that my graduates have these disciplines, which is critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, information literacy, media literacy, technological fluency, flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, and ability to socially network. These are the skills of the future. I may learn physics, you may learn economics, somebody may learn something else. Fine, they are required for the world. But in learning all that, this has to be required. This has to be done, which is why multidisciplinary. Yes, sir. Sir, you will get this on any Google. 21st century skills, there are plenty, including books are available, freely downloadable. I will not take time because Jayendra is already standing there. Faculty mindset is very, very important because parents and students are also going to resist. Not that they are not going to, they'll easily take it. But if we are not convinced, we cannot convince them. I think students are the easiest among the three. Faculty, parents, students, if you say, perhaps students will be easier because they are younger and open. Parents and teachers are perhaps little more difficult. So changing our mindset is more important. We need to recognize that a multidisciplinary education is in the interest of our students' future. Because those who are with us today in our colleges will work for next 30, 40 years. We don't know what the world is going to be. 3 months ago, nobody had heard of this term which is already upsetting us called ChatGPT. So I don't know what will come in next 3 months and next year. So we need to prepare them for that. So therefore, both are required, and we need to be a little more holistic and multidisciplinary. Essentially change our mindset and perhaps provide opportunity where we can talk to each other as people from different disciplines, so that we appreciate this, and once we are convinced, we should be able to talk to our sorry? Huh? Okay. Okay. Yeah.
The next slide.
Okay. Next. Huh? I don't know what is confusion. May result in a tension. See, if we are, because we all, see, it's understandable. I mean, I have to hurry up, sorry for that. We are all grown up in a certain discipline. Okay? I've invested 20, 30, 40 years being an expert in a discipline. Suddenly somebody policy comes and says, no, you cannot focus on one discipline. So my own lack of conviction or my own upbringing in a certain discipline creates a tension in my mind. Should breadth be given or should only be depth be given? That's a tension in my mind as a faculty. Okay? I need to resolve this tension. It is both breadth and depth are essential. That is the thing that I need to accept. I hope I made my point. Yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
On previous slide, this,
Ah.
my micro and macro. So can I?
Srivastava will soon throw the water bottle in.
Macro sentence and micro sentence. Yeah, regulatory framework, sir. Yes. please.
Yeah, okay.
Framework and guidelines, please.
No, they have to, see, basically the only thing that we need to, huh? Meaning these changes can be initiated only at UGC, state, union, government level. It can only come from there. You and I can't do anything at the institution.
Considering the present trend,
Huh?
what is going on in our country,
Hmm.
number of the head universities,
Huh?
head university levels,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
some reputed institutions are not, they are obeying this, following this guideline issued by the UGC, and award part also. So some universities are running the courses without taking permission from this UGC.
True. Yeah.
Vice
be open about it. One, you cannot hope to implement NEP in bits and pieces. You have to implement all its dimensions, number one. Yeah. Which means there will be multiple accrediting agencies, so hopefully most colleges will, institutions will get accredited, number one. Number two, for shifting to a new system, I mean, let me be very cynical in saying this. I'm being very cynical, still hopeful. Even in the new system, the so-called fake or those who are misusing the system will not increase at least. I can think of that. Thank you very much.
Sir, one question was there, sir.
Sorry?
One more question was there.
We'll take one.
We'll take it.
Yeah. Sorry, sir.
So we sir, still I have 1 hour.
Okay. Good.
So you can ask your question.
Be focused.
Yes, sir.
Let's be question. Let's not make statements.
I have a question from you. The lecture has come that the colleges which have single stream should be multi-stream or double
Yeah.
stream. But this education policy also offers us courses of science to be included, whether you institute the art stream or of commerce stream or of science stream. In that case, what is the mechanism the leader should apply so that at least it becomes double, so that we can avoid pressures of getting eliminated from the cycle of this thing.
No, sir. One thing is there. Please sit down. Students can acquire a part of their course from any other institution, including online. Please sit down.
I have another.
Yeah, and that is a possibility. That means there is a danger of some of my students going away.
Yeah.
Why will students go away? They will go away because there is something interesting happening elsewhere. Yeah. If you want to attract equally another set of students from somewhere, yeah, you will have to provide something more interesting. If you don't provide interesting, why should anybody come? I mean, if I am an inefficient college, what is my right to survive?
So then there is a follow-up question also. Since this will be regulated by Higher Education Commission of India, and we have also seen that states which are not ruled by the government, which is at
At the
the
center.
there is a risk. Financial problems are also there. Policies are also not reaching out, or the government is also not enforcing those agencies to implement that. In that case, how it will go?
Yeah, sir, please sit down. Fortunately, which is what Professor Jain was also saying, this is one policy which has been widely accepted. Even if you see, for example, another important political party, Congress's response, says great policy challenges implementation. So they have not objected anything in the policy. Yeah. There is only one state which has officially said they have problem with the policy, which is Tamil Nadu. Barring that, no other opposition party ruled states have said anything about the policy. So in that sense, the policy, since it is formed largely by people who mean something better for education, I mean, people like Kasturi Rangan or Manjul Bhargava, one of the world's most well-known mathematicians, field medal winner. I mean, these are the kind of people who are involved. So it is more, as a policy, it's more acceptable to everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yeah.
Yes,
Two more and then we stop.
Sir, there is a degree of which is being given to the credibility of the institutions, certificate giving institutions. What I mean is even now, when students coming from different private
Yeah.
universities, private universities, or autonomous colleges,
Yeah.
for the interviews,
Yeah, I see.
then what they are being questioned again.
Yeah.
You're from that
No, no.
university, this university.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
Now, from an ordinary, I mean, no need to say it's ordinary, but
bad or anything.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
From an autonomous college, which is very in and around that place, maybe looked at as something
Suddenly
very
becoming a award.
a student, coming from
Yeah,
that.
listen, I got your question, please.
That's all.
Which is why that whole system of graded autonomy. Because it's also, you see, my ability to deliver what I promise, if it's being tested by somebody, that to that extent it contributes to my credibility. Nobody is going to be given the authority to award degree overnight just like that. Yeah. If it's a university which is mandated by the government or by the state legislature, that's different. Even today that will happen. But a college becoming a degree awarding will go through a certain process of graded autonomy which they will move. Even if somebody decides today that I want to be that, he can't be awarding degree next year. There will be a definite process because that is an issue of credibility. Sir, yeah, last question.
You are saying that CER increases from 28 to 50.
50, yeah.
Within 2035.
Yeah.
I want to say here that provided the number of faculties are reducing. So, not contradictory. Number two, sir, why UGC are not taking same curriculum for the whole country? So that at least 10% can deviate.
Sir, the first question, the response is the jobs will get displaced, but new kind of jobs will come. See, the point of disruption. For example, I don't know whether you remember, 25 years ago, bank staff used to regularly go on strike twice a year against computerization. Okay? Please go and ask anybody now whether they are happy computers being coming or not. In fact, people who left, took VRS in banks at those days, were those who can get job elsewhere. Those who stayed are who can't get anywhere else. The point, the larger point is, certain profession, occupations will get displaced, but certain other professions will come. Certain other occupations will come. Disruption doesn't mean decrease in number of jobs. For example, service sector will grow. So you will need all kinds of services. Yesterday morning session, 2 people said mental wellness is going to be a huge issue. Perhaps there is going to be a huge demand for a psychiatrist or counselors in future. So new jobs will come. It's a question of how do you do it. Yeah. Second one, therefore liberal education. If you are ready for disruption, you need a different kind of education. Second one, sir, I forgot.
Sir, if you want to implement NEP 2026.
Okay. Sorry. Sir, I am of the opinion that any physicist anywhere in the country or any economist anywhere in the country, if he decides to put a curriculum, certain things he will anyway put. I mean, he is not a BA economics course in Kerala and Tripura. Tomorrow, if total freedom is given, he is going to be A to Z different. No, it will not be because economics is economics, physics is physics.
So there are multiple entry and exit.
No, that's fine. I don't have time, but there is an answer for that because there is a credit framework.
Yeah.
Credit structure has to be there, and the credit structure will decide whether I can move there or not. And the receiving institution can decide whether I have done all the required courses or not. And if I have not done, they can ask me to do a bridge course. All this is there in the statement, in the policy. Please read. Okay, it's there. But only thing is you can't deny me position because I have not done first year in your college or I have done elsewhere. So I believe difference in syllabus or freedom to design syllabus differently for different institutions will actually encourage creativity and create better and better curriculum structures. In fact, I will be unhappiest man personally if UGC tomorrow decides as per NEP this is economics, this is physics, everybody do it, that will be killing this policy and its spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we would like to call this meeting